Hello? All right. Hello, good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. Like each time I'm saying it's a challenge with Chicago weather. It's either too hot, either too cold, or people want to be outside, enjoy the weather, or people do not want to leave the house and come somewhere because the weather is miserable, or it's first snow, it's first rain or something. So it's like every time I like, thank you so much for coming, guys. So appreciative of people being here, coming after work, and spending time with us. So welcome to Friday Postgres user group. Okay, anybody here who do not know me? No, nobody? No, we reached this point that everybody knows me. That's still me, still in DRW, and still doing like 1 million things. In addition to DRW being employed like 150%. Still your president of Prairie Postgres non-for-profit. And the board member of Linux Professional Institute and the communications chair for ACM Chicago chapter. Guest Wi-Fi, so I think everybody who wanted logins, they got the logins. And that's just a reminder for the future. If you are coming here and you need internet, find me before the show, because we have our individual 1 day individual logins, and there is no like guest Wi-Fi generic for everybody. All right, so what had been happening in the world of Postgres? So first of all, in October, we had PGCon EU, and that's the biggest Postgres conference in the world. And we had like over 700 participants, if you can imagine it. They're gigantic. My challenge at this conference is kind of like out of this 700 people, I know personally about 200, and I want to talk with about 100 out of these 200. And then it's like absolutely impossible. Yeah, Jay is nodding because he was there, and that's exactly the situation. So, but otherwise it was a terrific event, and they did recordings. So hopefully at least some recordings will show up, and I will make sure that everybody knows when they will be available. Now, what is next? So we're at the end of 2025, and there will be lots of events which are coming in 2026. So first of all, there will be first ever PG Day Dallas in Texas. And the CFP is still open. It will be in February, I think. Okay, so that's probably one conference, one place where you want to go in February to Texas. Other places probably would not dare to have conferences, except for FOSDEM. Then there will be Scale, California Linux Expo. That's as usual. It's in beginning of March, and also the call for proposals is still open. And then there will be PGCon Dev. That's like very special Postgres conference for Postgres developers. And this will be, again, as usual, in Canada, and it will be in Vancouver this year. Then will be PG Data, and we will have separate slide about it because it's most important conference for us. And then we are like not co-locating, but kind of co-locating, coordinating with first ever PG Day Boston, which will be on June 9th. So it will be right after PG Data conference. And also, if you ever heard about online conference POSET, it's actually a super cool online event. And there's CFP is also open, and honestly, worth checking. I was skeptical about online events. There are two which I really love. It's POSET and P99. So those two, I always got terrific feedback out of them. All right, so now us, Prairie Postgres. So we just turned 1 year old last time. So we celebrated with cake, and those who was not able to make it, you missed out on the cake. That was a terrific turnout. I'm very thankful for everybody. So QR for our Discord, I love to see people on Discord. You know why? Because there are lots of things I want to discuss with you. Like, for example, I'm still kind of, entertaining the idea of having some free classes in Postgres sometimes. And that's something I would like to discuss, whether it will help anybody, how else we can attract more people, how else we can do the outreach. So we have Discord server, we have a general channel, and we have a channel for this user group, and we have a channel for priority Postgres voting members. So as usual, we always need you. So that is priority Postgres volunteer sign up and the voting member sign up. So I promise to have the first annual meeting in November, and we're not having it because I had like a never-ending work crisis in November, but I still want to do it this year because, again, we want to hear from you. Membership is free, but why we want members? Because, again, we want to do what people want us to do, because that's why I'm outreaching for community, for people who are using Postgres, and I want to know how we can help you, learn Postgres, use Postgres wisely, etc. So again, I have some, okay, I will take out my literature. So all QR codes are also printed here, and please come and join us. And I love to talk, and I do not like to talk in silence. I love to talk with people, right? All right. So PG data. So what we've got now. So call for proposals is open. And once again, for I don't know how many times I already told this, please don't be shy to submit. Because even last year we had a couple of talks which were from regular people who were attending this meetup, and they were speaking for the first time. They submitted the talks, and the talks were accepted. So this year we will have more talks because we will have 2 days conference, and we will have free tracks for each one. So actually, first day we will have a free training for half day, then we will have talks for half day, and then we will have second day, which will be all talks. So lots of opportunities. We will have 45 minutes and 25 minutes talks, and we want to hear from you. We want to hear what you are doing. It does not have to be AI, by the way. It does not have to be something like super, 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 super cool. Tell us what you are doing with Postgres, and especially, we love to hear the talks from application developers who use Postgres, because that's something we really, really, want to know how you're using it, what are your challenges, and how we can help. Okay. So CFP open until January 5. And I know it seems like it's far, far away, but guess what? Thanksgiving is coming, then it will be like Christmas shopping and whatever your list and whom we've forgotten where we need to be. And then it will be Christmas, and then it will be New Year. And then we always receive 90% of submissions the night before it closes. So put it on your calendar. Okay. All right. So still, we need sponsors. Love to hear from sponsors. If your company even can do brand sponsorship, that is totally fine, because you know what, we are looking for new sponsors. All sponsors will be featured on the website. All sponsors will get at least one ticket, and all sponsors will have some coverage. We are looking for community partners. We have 2 community partners now. That is Chicago Python user group and Chicago Code and Coffee, right here. Yeah, that's actually an amazing group. I'm keeping telling people, when I first came there, I didn't know what's it about and how to navigate it. And I have so many people coming from Chicago Code and Coffee to here. So absolutely check them out. Tickets are on sale. So students, if you know students, we will have 50 students tickets, up to 50. I don't think we will have 50 students, but up to 50 student tickets will be $20, and they are available now. And early bird is already open, $30. First 100 people. We still have just we have registrations, but very few registrations. So open, please use it. It won't be cheaper. That's like the cheapest you get. All right. So now that we are done with conference, okay, we're not done. So come talk to me after Jay's presentation. We are hanging out here for a while. So talk to me, ask me what you want to know about conference. I'm happy to fill you in. But back to what we're doing when we are doing talks about Postgres and everything Postgres related. So we started as Illinois Prairie Postgres user group in April. And guess what? We started from Jay's talk. That was our first talk, which was actually like not Chicago Postgres user group, but Prairie Postgres. And thank you, Jay. Then in May, we had Developer Summit because that's what we are about. We are about application developers and how they use Postgres. Then we had Robert's presentation again. So same thing. We had like I love that we had so many presentations from the field, people who are using it. So that was actually a super cool presentation. And then we had Dorek, and he is the MC students from Northwestern, so it's also local presenter. And in October, I did the like the rehearsal run of my talk, which I later presented in Riga. So that's what we had so far. And today is our last meetup of 2025. And we have Jay again because, but when he was here first time, first of all, like I barely had a chance to hear him. And then there were like calls, ask him to come and do it again. And then I asked him, and then first he said, I'm not sure, but then thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming. So once again, what I wanted to say, that's it. That's final meetup. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your support. And please join Prairie Postgres, all right? Register, spread the word. And now, Jay, floor is yours. I don't know which mic you want to use. I want to this one. All right. Okay, I like to jump, so.
I'm gonna try to stay stationary. So.
It'd be easy enough, and also I'm loud, so should be loud enough.
You need to be on.
Do I need to be louder?
No, you need to be on Zoom.
I need to. Oh, I need to join.
Recording. Yeah.
So I need to join the Zoom call. That was a thing that
I mean, you are on Zoom, but your voice needs to be recorded.
Oh, okay, okay, and then.
That's why probably might be better. Because.
All right. Let me. Nope, that did not work. I'm gonna try this one. Got it. And then we're gonna move this. Yeah. Go. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so Zoom can see me. Y'all can see that. Don't worry, I'm not showing any code. So, well, I'm showing a little bit of code, but I'm not doing any of it. First of all, hi, and thank you for letting me come back, Hetty. Thank you so much. I saw familiar faces, which was cool because this is like my third time in Chicago ever. So to see so many like familiar faces is awesome. I feel like there's community here, and I feel like even though my zip code may not show it, I feel like I'm a part of it in some small way. Also, Hetty, you didn't tell me that I was the first user group of this thing.
We were kind of,
okay.
Semi-official. We were semi-official.
Hey, I love that. I love that, I was able to get the ball rolling and all that. Quick question, just so that I can kind of survey the room. How many people here actually use Postgres? Okay, so there's a couple of people that don't. How many people don't use a database at all currently? Okay. So this will be interesting in how we do this. How many people here would identify themselves as like an app developer? Nobody? Okay, now the talk is going to get really weird. Okay, so like I identify as an app developer. I've been in the Python community for 10 years. I have built several things. Some of them involve data, some of them haven't involved data. And this entire presentation is built off of some of the anxieties that I got when my boss was like, hey, we really want you to become like really ingrained in the Postgres community. And I was like, this feels like a setup. Like, I'm going to make something, it's going to have some data in it. That data is going to get leaked, and then I'm going to get tarred and feathered and ran out of town. So that is kind of where we came from with the idea of this talk, is that I am an app developer that for a long time was afraid of databases. And here are some of the things that I have slowly kind of done to become a little bit more comfortable. Now, again, since all of you are clearly, how many people here are afraid of the database? Anybody? Is there anybody that has like some anxiety about doing things in a database? I mean, that seems reasonable. So good. That's great, because I've been told anybody that walks into anything with absolutely no fear is very, very arrogant and like sorely mistaken. But also, then this talk will be for you. This is just how I approach the journey. I would love for you to take some of this inspiration and approach it in your own special way. And also, if you are that confident person that just loves some Postgres, does it day and night, and like you've got it, there are other people around you that don't. And like, I'm gonna have some advice for you as well. You're gonna be able to take a little bit from this as well. So with that said, let's get started. I'm pushing buttons and they're not working. There we go. Like I said, a little bit about me. I'm a staff product advocate for Postgres at a company called Ivan. Ivan flew me out here, so we will pay some bills for like a couple of minutes like later on. And then after that, we probably won't talk about it again. I'm also the founder and executor of a nonprofit called Black Python Devs. If you want to learn more about that, then check out the fireside chat that Thad and I had in April, because we talked a lot about that. But for those that want kind of a quick answer, we try to make sure that there are Python events and spaces where Black people are comfortable attending, and we want to make sure that those events are also comfortable for those said people. Happy to talk about that anytime, except for like right now where I'm giving a talk about Postgres. And again, I've been in the Python community for about 10 years. I've been in the Postgres one for about 1. So there's a very deep, like, I have to learn the way of the water. I feel like that guy from the first Avatar movie, since there's a new movie that's coming out where it's like I put the mask on and I start thinking Postgres and I start walking funny and I can't keep myself up. Like, that is very much how I feel most of the time throughout the day, where it's like I'm learning things consistently. I'm just gonna say a special thanks to Hetty, who forced me to be here. I didn't have a choice. You don't understand. I will blink twice. But no, special thing. Like, thank you so much, Hetty, for letting me come and present and do all those things. And it really is an honor to be here again. We have to make this a continual thing, and I guess I have to show up at least 3 times next year. I'm not promising that. That's not a promise. So I want some community participation here. What makes databases scary for app developers? Does anybody have an idea?
Persistence.
Persistence. Okay. Yeah. If my app goes down, my database is still up. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Dropping a table.
Dropping a table. Yeah. I've dropped a table accidentally.
Yes.
The main scary for me, it's a problem with migrations.
Migrations. Okay. Awesome. Well, I have a slide for you.
I think the problem which app developers come to me, that database shoots weird messages which they cannot understand.
The database has messages.
Weird messages.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've definitely had a message pop up, or I get like some violation constraints thing, and I'm like, I have no clue what this means. Chat GPT, please help me. I think there's one back there.
Not understanding query behavior and how to optimize a query.
Not understanding query behavior. Yes, I think that's fair. Also, knowing when you're locking, when you're doing locking actions and versus like blocking things and unblocking things. Those are all good reasons. I kind of when I was thinking about it, I had like three simple ones. One, the one that's spinning is cost, because every time I've tried to build something, my database always costs more than like the actual app. And I like to ball on a budget. So like anytime I'm doing something, I'm immediately like, okay, cost consciousness here. How do I do this? How is it affordable? How is it like, how am I going to like not mess up the networking side of things and then like spend a bunch of money on the networking side? We'll talk about that later. The query language as a Python developer, like white space matters, and like you put like colons in places, and in Postgres you use semicolons, and sometimes you do an at symbol followed by a greater than symbol, and I have still no clue what that means. But like, yeah, sometimes query language can be intimidating and a little scary. And then you have like this data integrity and security, kind of like we were talking about. Oops, I accidentally dropped a table. Now what do I do? Or you know, I made a migration happen, and then all of a sudden a bunch of data was deleted because like some model change happened in like my web app, like in Django. These things happen. When they happen, I say words that I will not say on recording a lot, very fastly. And yeah, it's rough. So again, I promised we would pay some bills. That cost one, I'm hoping we can kind of resolve a little bit. I work for a company called Ivan that has a Postgres tier. I'm happy to announce we just introduced our developer tier for Ivan for Postgres, which means at least in Ivan's world, it's never been cheaper to build Postgres stuff. And it's actually going to continue to get cheaper, but I can't talk too much about that until, yeah. So it's great if you want to build something. If you are an app developer and you want to build something, we have a whole tier for developers that is very set up for like, build your thing, test it with Ivan, see what works, see what doesn't. And then once companies start knocking on your door because it's the time of AI and VC capital, like then consider moving into that professional tier. Also, hey, if you want to go to ivan.io/j, you can get a little extra credit and start doing a bunch of stuff. And this isn't in a slide, but it's very important because I understand the city of Chicago has had to deal with some stuff lately in terms of people coming into their city and like getting in the way. And what I will say is, for the first time ever, I'm happy to announce that Ivan has actively gotten involved with helping people live and be awesome. We agreed to sponsor an initiative that helps make it easy to find food banks in the Atlanta area. We're giving them enough like Postgres resources for them to operate for a year. I would love to repeat that in places like Chicago as well. This was a thing that I started because I found some money that my old boss, hi, Maddie. I got to see a spreadsheet. I was like, what is that money to? And I was like, I don't need that. Maybe we could put that to use somewhere. And now I got to keep that money. So like, if you're doing really good things, if you're doing awesome things that like bring an impact to the city of Chicago, your area, if you work for a nonprofit and you're doing stuff and you need some Postgres resources, at least reach out to me. I can't make promises, but what I can say is like, we've seen it happen once. I would love to see it happen again and again and again. And now that this is on recording, you can publish it. And then now they have to do it. That's how things work, right?
All right. Guild sponsor verification system, right?
There we go. So I want to start with confronting my database fears. My first talk in the Postgres community, I was here. It was here at PG Day Chicago. I was very, very like manic. I had been told all of these like false rumors that like the Postgres community hates it when you talk about things like, I don't know, ORMs, and like if you're not doing it in the truest of Postgres ways, you might get like commented off the stage. And I didn't want my first experience in the Postgres community to be one where I cried. So I put on a brave face. I took all of the ORM stuff out of my code and I directly queried Postgres like an adult, and things broke and I cried anyway. So we're going to talk about ORMs. And if that's a problem, I will pause so people can leave. Nope, nobody left. Great. So ORMs are actually relatively like viable now. Like this is really cool. Like when Postgres 18 dropped, Python 3.14 dropped the next day. And I was like, here's my moment. Here's my, I get to contribute to both communities at once. Like, this is going to be so awesome. And I was looking at all of the different features that were in Postgres 18. And I was like, okay, I'm in the Django community. I can get a contribution into the Django ORM. And I go into their ticket tracker. And what do I see? But they've already pushed all of the updates for Postgres 18 into Django ORM within 24 hours. In fact, they had been working on it since the betas came out. So I'm really comfortable saying if within 24 hours your ORM is up to date with the latest version of Postgres, that's kind of good. Like I think that we can kind of like start putting to bed some of the like, oh, ORMs, you don't have the same compatibility and all these other things. Like I don't think that's necessarily a problem these days. And that's like, that's just kind of super awesome. Like I'm just really excited about that. And I'm happy that I get to talk to a bunch of the Django people who kind of put that into effect, although they didn't warn me about it. The other thing that I started doing was really starting to familiarize myself with what Postgres query language looked like. Again, I'm still writing Python code. I'm writing things in Django, and I'm trying to figure out like when I tell it, you know, item.get.limit.something, what does that actually mean? And I learned that there are really kind of three great ways to do this. One is you can just use a print statement. Print statements are great. You know, logging statements are great too. And I have one here. You can use, like, if you're using Django, you can use the Django logger, but you could also just print out your like query, and it'll give you the raw SQL that it's calling. And then if you're not sure what you can do, you can then put that in like latest AI tool and say, hey, please explain to me what this is doing. And this was great because I started figuring out like what pieces of this were happening. Like full text search in Django is literally like one word. It's just like full text search and then what your text string is and then your config like metadata. And in Postgres, it's doing TS vectors and coalescing things. And I still don't know what coalescing means. If someone wants to tell me what that means, like after this talk, please fill me in. But like, it's nice that I can take this, I can copy and paste it into something like the Ivan SQL to text thing and say, like, walk me through this, please, as if I were four. Yeah, that's great. And then if you're worried about like, well, print statements I don't get to keep, I don't get to understand what's happening, you can actually log those SQL queries directly into both the console and to files. So if you're not as comfortable running like PG stats and like figuring out like all of the like most frequently used queries and things that way, you can actually just take regular console logs and then give that to AI and say, what were my most popular queries? And then it'll just tell you, and like, that's great too. So really like just honestly doing things and just being like, what is this actually doing? Print. Oh, that's what it's doing. Cool, thanks, awesome, got it. And then you can keep moving. Now, someone over here was talking about migrations, and migration files were actually another way that I looked at like how things work. Now, I will throw a caveat in here. This is Django migration. This is a migration made through Django. It was also made through AI. And I'm pretty sure AI actually wrote the migration by hand instead of doing like Django manage.py make migrations. But it was really cool that I got to see like a run SQL command here. And it was like, okay, I made a change and it told me what that change actually looks like inside of my Postgres database and how to reverse it if I ever wanted to. And that was like a really interesting and like eye-opening experience for me where I was like, again, migration files, they're scary if you mess them up. God be with you. Like, it's not a great feeling, but this felt approachable. It felt readable. I could see my dependencies. I could see which migration that I was in. I'm over here on 12, so I could see like, hey, like migration 12, what does 11 look like? What does 10 look like? How did we get here? And it was really like, it was honestly one of those experiences that made me feel like I could do this, because I had plenty of times before said, let's build a model, let's migrate that model, let's add some commands, let's migrate those commands, let's make changes to that model. Okay, so now we're altering tables. Like, it was cool to see, based on commit messages, based on migration files, what was actually happening and how I was progressing through those migrations. And if you're not using Django, you're using something like SQL Alchemy with Fast API, like Alembic does the same thing. And you have these migration files in your source code, so you can always go through it and see the development of your database in real time. So I started to feel really comfortable with Postgres. In fact, you might say I started to actually start embracing Postgres a little bit more. And that's kind of the second part of this. You know, the first thing I would say, and again, for the recording's sake, since no one here likes building apps but me, I started figuring out what commands I was using more and more. And these slash commands are fantastic. I love them. Also using pgstat, learning what pgstat and pgstat statements look like and how I can interact with them. I started leaning away from my ORM, and I actually enjoy just opening PGCLI and saying, hey, PGCLI, let's have some fun. Let's go in and do some things. Also, shout out to the folks at Crunchy Data / Snowflake now. I was just in Kansas City, and the person who organizes the Kansas City meetup, Elizabeth, must have knew that I was giving this talk because she beat me to it. There used to be a lot more commands here. She wrote a whole blog post on it. So I'm like, open source, go support writing of good content. So yeah, like I really felt like I could carry myself a little bit taller. And I would do things like go to Postgres New York, and I would talk to the organizers, and I would go and I would say, hey, like, here's what I'm doing. And I would encourage y'all to do this as well. In fact, there's a bunch of things. I'm not going to stay on this too long because Hetty gave you all the list. If you want the list again, here's the list. Also, some trips to Europe. Go to Europe. It's fun. Riga was good. The food was amazing. I want to talk about my experience at Postgres New York, and one of the things that happened. I gave this talk called The 5 Levels of JSON Tables. We remember Postgres 17 came out. JSON tables were one of those features. I was really excited about JSON tables. Like, I saw that, like, hey, we're creating this virtual table of JSON data. And I was like, this is going to change everything. Like, look out, MongoDB, we're coming for you. Like, all of this stuff, it was going to be completely like a brand new experience for us. And I conference-driven developed myself into a talk called the 5 stages of the 5 levels of JSON tables, thinking that it was going to be absolutely fantastic. And I took out a bunch of JSON queries from code. I put in JSON tables, and you know what happened? My code became 8 times slower. And I didn't know why. I knew enough about JSON and JSONB. I knew that like JSONB was the thing to do. And I was like, okay, there's this new feature here. Why is it not working? And at PGConf New York, I sat in Magnus's talk about all the new things happening with PG18. And then after the talk, I said, hey, Magnus, you know, I'm trying this thing with JSON tables. I got to talk in like 48 hours. I would really love to sound smart about this. Why is my code 8 times slower? And he said, well, JSON tables write everything out to the JSON data type, not the JSONB data type. So I took perfectly fast JSON, like stored in JSONB, converted it to perfectly slow, just JSON data type, and then sat there and wondered like why everything was going bad. And when I asked him, I was like, why on earth would you do that? His answer was simple. Well, we wrote this thinking about people who were ingesting JSON data as strings and normalizing it into actual data. We weren't thinking about it from the perspective of someone who already had the JSON-B data inside their database and just wanted prettier looking like output. And that was great because I apparently was the first person that ever thought about doing that. I don't know what was going on. I wondered why there were no blog posts about this. And I asked and I was like, well, has anyone else shown you this? And said, well, no, because normally app developers don't speak at our conferences. So then I was like, oh, I get it. So if more app developers talked about how they used or misused Postgres, then the people in the room who knew the answers could tell them why their stuff was significantly slower and how to make it better. And I was like, well, is there an appetite for that? So then I went to the organizers, Jonathan Katz and Chelsea Dole, and I said, hey, JSON table, yada, 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 yada. How, like, what's your appetite for app developers talking about their experiences with Postgres at these conferences? And they were both like, if you got more app developers to tell us how they were using Postgres, that would be fantastic. That is what we want. Magnus, in his same talk, talked about like async IO and Postgres and like those things. And he actually made this comment of like, we can't tell you what these settings should be. We just set them to like arbitrary settings. What we really need is the community to tell us how they're using these features and what their settings are so that we can actually like give you sane settings. We can give you our recommendations based on use cases. So again, to all of the app developers out there, I would say there are several great Postgres conferences that you should participate in. In fact, there's a great Postgres conference that you should participate in. I might know someone who's on the CFP committee. I might be someone that's on the CFP committee. I'm really going to push for app developer stories at this event because we've seen how important that they are. And because it is 2025 and we have to talk about AI, I want to talk about the other thing that I started to do when I was embracing like Postgres as an app developer, which was I was really pushing AI to do the other things, which was really cool. Like one of these things, if you want to talk to me about plants, I see a bunch of plants in here and like, that's really cool. I started getting into plants this year. I have 30 now, I think. When I go into something, I go full head on. So this is why I'm giving 2 talks at a Postgres meetup. But also like I had 30 plants that I got over this year. I built a plant tracker for myself. And the way that I developed it, like being in the Django community, was I said, I'm going to be the DBA and I will let AI be the app developer. So what I did was I wrote all of the stuff that I wanted in the actual like Postgres schema. And then I told AI to go and like investigate my schema and like build an app that's based on that data. And it was great because as I thought about more and more features, I had to force myself to think about this because again, you know, me being a solo app developer, I'm the only one that's in charge of the web presence, but also the data presence. But I've also worked at companies where like you have 15 different services actively working on the database, like connecting to the database at one time. And if a Django developer comes in and says, well, we're just going to alter some tables now, they're going to get fired. Like they're literally going to be kicked out of the company because it's going to have downhill effects that affect so many other people. And if we talk about some of the things that Django lacks, Django doesn't actually have a very elegant way of working with views. Django doesn't have a great way of working with functions. You can do it, but the way that you do it is you lie about those views, you call them tables, and then you modify your migration file to say, hey, like, don't create this, it's already created. And then the functions you just call with like a straight up SQL command. So like my Django app is very much the dumb app here. It's like, I've done all this work. You now have to conform to what I've done. And AI actually does a pretty decent job at that. That said, I was working with someone on a Django app, what was it, last week, in which my computer froze and it froze on my environment variables file. So for a good like 15 seconds, I could not do anything while my key was sitting there for the internet to look at. And then for the rest of the stream, I was like, recycle credentials, like change all the passwords, do all the stuff, like awesome. But then also I gave a talk at Riga that was called Don't Leak PII to AI, in which we did a vibe coding experiment that I had ran through at least 10 times while I was at Riga. And then I went on stage and the thing hallucinated and started throwing out PII all over the place. Now, luckily that data was fake, so no identifications were stolen in the making of it. But also, it was a very interesting experiment in that when you're working with AI, you do have to be extremely careful in what you're exposing to AI. So my advice there would be a few things. One, there's a pretty awesome company named Tiger Data. I think there's someone in the room that works at Tiger Data, so talk to them about that because I can't give it justice. But they created a set of Python utilities, and it's called PGAI, and it does things like add really good descriptions and stuff using large language models. And there's a whole other plethora of things that it does to work with AI in a like a Postgres space, but also maybe consider like limiting access to certain columns, certain values, maybe extract some personal information out into views if you're going to go down the AI road. And then just some advice that I've learned, clear your context frequently. Like AI gets really, really anxious, kind of like me. It's like a little hamster, but like it will try and do too much almost every time. And it will look at what you've done previously to help like determine what it's going to do next. So in order to prevent it from doing that, most of the code CLI LLM tools have a command called clear, which will just clear your context and force it to start over, which you can use that to keep it on the rails. If you just got through doing something and now you're going to do something completely different, run clear first and then go do that thing. Otherwise, it might do what it did for me, which was completely try to delete migration files over and over and over again. That was real fun. That took about an hour to stop. And then also there are some MCP tools. There are a lot of MCP tools. Honestly, I kind of don't feel like I need the MCP tools when I'm working with Postgres. How many people here use PSQL in their command line? I would hope a lot of people. Okay, more people should just use PSQL. It's great. PSQL has this great feature in that you can run PSQL, your authentication stuff, and then a command, and it'll just put the output into standard output. So if Claude Code and Gemini CLI know how to do that, I don't necessarily need an MCP server to like do that for me. Again, there are other reasons why you might want to use MCP if you want to do things like stat statements and like, you know, have it look at like overall maintenance of your Postgres database. But when it comes to just like learning how queries work and like how you can establish views and create functions and things, you kind of don't need it. So what can we do as Postgres people to make Postgres less scary for app developers? Well, I thought about this, and the first thing that I thought was, well, let's just become app developers. That's a pretty easy idea, and like let's do the same thing that we're asking Python developers to start. Like, let's just do that as well. Being in the Python community, asked a bunch of Python conference organizers, and I'm not putting their CFPs up because I don't think there's anything except for PyCon US that's available right now. PyCascade's already passed, so you missed the CFP for that. But they also want people like teaching them more and more about Postgres. Let's like debug and let's like demystify some of the things that we're doing in Postgres. And one of the easy ways to do that, if you're like, I'm not an app developer, like, hey, good thing Claude and ChatGPT and Gemini and all them, they can be your app developer. That's fine. You know, you can learn the same way that we're learning from them. But also, if you've never used Postgres before, it's a really easy way to create a simple REST API that's just based on your Postgres. Like it just looks at your Postgres table. It's like a Docker file that you run next to it. You give it like access, like you just create a role for it. And then you can start creating routes based on SQL query, like, PostgreSQL queries. And then from there, you can host it and then just directly access it. Relatively easy, 10 out of 10 would recommend. And again, any questions that you would have with that, just use AI. Also encourage yourself to maybe learn a little bit more about like the app developer space. Do we have anybody here that does Python things other than me? No? Okay, we got a couple people.
You've seen my Python, you know I don't.
While in Riga, I got to talk to the web team. There are a lot of Django websites that run the Postgres community at large. In fact, I was told that all of like the Postgres, like US and Postgres Europe, like infrastructure is basically large Django sites that do things. And I also got to talk to people about how is your experience with that? And they were like, if we only had app developers in the room to make this experience better for us. Someone was saying they were literally changing their primary keys in order to reorder items on the website. Like, don't do that. Stop it. Get some help. I think one of your icons said that. It's wild that we have that happening, and we're also kind of in a really good kismet moment. A lot of those websites are on one of the LTS versions of some Linux distro that uses an LTS version of Python, which uses an LTS version of Django, and all of them are expiring in 2026, which means that everybody's got to migrate to the new LTSs. So I, who have horrible time balance, like work-life balance and all these other things, said, well, I'm a Python developer. It would be cool if like we could just come in and help with that. And they said, great, we'd love to see you do that. So now I'm looking for Python developers who are willing and able to help with like a big contribution to the Postgres community. Like being able to actively say like, I helped make sure that like the Postgres ecosystem is running on stable, safe like versions and stable and safe software. And like that is really the biggest thing. So now, before I open up for questions, I've only got one other thing that I want to talk about, which is the making space for our friends who develop apps. On Thursday, I couldn't remember what day it was. On Thursday, I'm launching the first episode of a limited season run of a thing that I'm calling the Elephant of the Room. I didn't make the name. Okay, I get it. It's corny. I didn't make the name. Anyway, the very first episode is going to be myself and one of my good friends, Jeff Triplett, who is in Lawrence, Kansas, which if you don't know, that's like the Hall of Fame of Django land. Like everybody there had something to do with Django. He was one of the first people to help bring it into open source from like a newspaper printing company. And we did a couple of live streams over the last like couple of weeks in which we made a conference talk transcription app that he can use for his project called Django TV, which is just a collection and library of Django conference talks from like the last like 10 years or so. And we spent like a good like 6 hours together actively working on this and vibe coding and doing all this stuff. And there was a lot that we learned, and we're going to kind of recap all of that on Thursday and share it with the community. So if you're not doing anything Thursday that's 1 p.m. Eastern, that's 12 here. So when you're on lunch, check this out. Check us out. We would love your feedback. Neither one of us are Postgres professionals. I mean, I guess I kind of am. They pay me to be. But we're Python developers who are learning Postgres together and sharing tips and tricks. And we got things wrong. We did things wrong, and we're going to be open and transparent about those things that we did wrong. And we want people in the community to tell us how to do that better. And how to not make those mistakes. Because I think that ultimately, like, that's the thing that I learned is like taking your ego, leaving it at home, and then going to places like this and saying, I'm afraid of the database, or I'm afraid of the Python code, or I'm afraid of migrations, or I'm afraid of JSON tables. You should be afraid of JSON tables. They are quite scary. But in doing that, there's a community of people. You found an excellent space here. There's a community of people who are willing to help you with those things. They're willing to demystify some of those things. And ultimately, it's through them and through that openness that you can become no longer afraid of the database. So that being said, I am the mean person, and I will say I will stand up here until someone asks me a question. It'll get awkward.
Thank you so much. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Super awesome. I will get my questions for the end. Anybody?
Questions? Questions? Anybody?
It's gonna get awkward. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
I can sing, y'all.
I see. So nice talk. I was wondering, so now that you're kind of, I guess, in a Postgres professional,
Okay.
yes.
Very,
So,
okay. You said it, not me.
So when it comes to kind of you engaging with the Postgres community as a whole, right? There's kind of, I guess, many different aspects of the PG community that who are like, database architects, administrators, etc. There are like maintainers, people who actually like maintain and develop Postgres, etc. When it comes to kind of engaging in that space, how has it been traversing that, knowing that there's kind of people, you're an app developer, right? And so it's definitely a different world. What has the traversal of that been like?
I think it's been how has the traversal been through different parts of the community? I think it's been easier than I thought and harder necessarily to wrap my head around than I thought. One of the things that really confused me for a while was the Postgres extension ecosystem. App developers think about extensions as like modules of like, here's a thing that I'm doing that like is really just kind of a shortcut of then doing it like the hard way, where like Postgres extensions are like, we ripped out core functionality of Postgres or we've modified it so that it does something different. So kind of understanding that words have meanings and those meanings might be different across like two different communities has kind of been one. But again, I think being upfront about what you don't know, or being upfront about like, hey, I don't fully understand how this works. Can you explain it to me? But also know that like I'm an app developer. So like if you say a word and I look at you like I'm gonna need you to clarify what that means. It's been surprising how many people are willing to help you. And again, like I think I'm a developer advocate. I say we tend to operate off of like the barter system. Hey, I'll go speak at your meetup if you come speak at my meetup. So like there is this world where like they'll go, hey, can you explain this like code thing to me? And I go, yeah, sure, I got you. Or like, can you explain to me how UUID7 works in Python so that when I tell the app developers just do that, like I'm not giving them bad advice. So I think they're just as eager to learn from me, maybe some of the things that I might know, that I'm eager to learn from them. Does that answer your question? Yeah. Awesome. There were other hands up.
All right.
So when you're talking to app developers and stuff, like what are the conversations you have around why look at Postgres and not whatever flavor of the month, brand new, built for AI, Schmine phone, maybe database, kind of how do you have those conversations? Or just what do you see people thinking about?
The primary conversation that I have around folks who are not familiar with Postgres is like, hey, do you remember a time when like technology was boring? Postgres came from that. And it's existed throughout the timeline of like all the exciting stuff. And it's learned from those things and it's brought some of those things into Postgres. But ultimately what you really have is a super reliable database system One in that like reliability is at its core. Like a part of that ACID thing is consistency and durability and integrity. And don't ask me what atomicity means. So like, you know, the atomic part is like, fine, whatever. But like all the other things really are like, we care about making sure that this is resilient. We care about if something bad were to happen, we have this write ahead log that will like continue the process on. So like, sure, if you want to play around with something new and shiny, feel free to, but you may not have all of those things that are baked into the core that is Postgres. And also, like, the nice thing about it is Postgres works well. Like, everybody is trying to make their stuff work with Postgres now. So even if you are like, oh, we probably shouldn't have used Postgres for some reasons, it's like, okay, well, getting your data out of Postgres is incredibly easy. And every company on the planet makes it really easy to move your data from Postgres into whatever their VC backed thing is. So like, sure, start with the simple thing. Start with the easy and reliable thing. And then like when you have a reason to get away from it, which there are reasons. There's a nice article like PG vector used in production can be awfully slow at times. And it's like, okay, if you've got enough data that not using PG vector is, or using PG vector is a concern, maybe OpenSearch is like a thing that you can try, but also incredibly easy to take your data out of Postgres, put it into OpenSearch. I know, I've done it several times. So like, I think like Postgres is so simple and such a good starting place that like you're not going to get punished for it too hard if you decide, well, maybe we got to put it in something else. And kind of a side note of that, like there are other tools out there that actually will allow you to keep your data in Postgres and query against it. Like ClickHouse is one of those where they have like a Postgres engine that you can just go, here's my Postgres database, I'm going to run queries on it. And it just works and you get like the best of both worlds. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Thank you.
Jay, you mentioned the JSON tables using that.
My nightmares.
Okay, okay. Without the name inclusion here, JSON tables was meant to compete head to head with Mongo JSON.
It wasn't. That was the thing.
Okay,
It
okay.
wasn't. I looked at the feature set and like what it did in the changelog, and I was like, this was meant to compete with Mongo. And like when I said that, Magnus looked at me like, no, you're very wrong. In fact, it was meant for people like me who have a bunch of JSON files like sitting on my desktop. And it's like, this should really be in a database, but I don't know how normalization works very well. And like trying to write a gnarly script that's like nested data 3 levels down, how do I access that? With JSON tables, you're able to go, hey, create this virtual table, and here are all the rows that you need to think about, and here's how you get to those rows. So then the rest of your work is just writing SQL. So that was the idea behind JSON tables, and yeah, now that I know that, yeah, I'm not using them nearly as much as I was before. Did you have more to that question?
No. I was coming in from a Mongo standpoint. So
Okay. Yeah. No. I think that there are extensions in the Postgres ecosystem that are like, we are coming for Mongo. I think what is it? Is it SquirrelDB? I don't know if they changed their name, but I think it's SquirrelDB or something like that.
database.
Yeah, there's like, and then there's like the new document database like thing that Microsoft open sourced as well, or the document DB thing. That is meant to be like a competitor to Mongo, but I've never used it, so I can't really speak to it.
AWS has document DB.
AWS has document DB. Microsoft has a different document DB, and AWS has also said that they are going to help contribute to the other document DB. Document DB is kind of a loaded term right now.
More questions? Any more?
Another question.
Okay,
I love it.
all right.
Yes, I gotcha. So I always like asking this question whenever you're kind of diving into something new. What has kind of your personal tooling been like? You know, you're
Oh, yeah.
diving into this, and so it's like you
Love
probably
that
built
question.
up some stuff. Yeah.
I'm like I said, I'm mostly using PGCLI. I kind of just picked it and it works. I like how it does autocomplete. It's really nice. Again, PSQL, pg-dump, pg-restore. I'm trying to use the things that come in the box a lot, just so I can understand. Like, I don't want to like have to go download a thing if I'm like over on a server somewhere. Like that's kind of strange. But if I can just use the tools that are there, that's great. There are a couple of tools that I've played around with like slightly. I think one's called like, was it Rainfrog or Raintree or something like that? I think it's called Rainfrog. That was like a TUI that like, I like TUI, so I saw it and I was like, oh, I'll give this a try. And it was a way to like interact with Postgres from a TUI perspective.
Like a char map?
I don't think it's a char map, but it's very similar to it. I think it's written in like Rust. Everything's got to be written in Rust these days. So like, there was one that was there. In terms of like interacting with AI, I prefer Claude Code. I like just being able to write skills. That is one thing that I do have is I have a Postgres tutor skill, and like its job is read the Postgres documentation and then tell me what I should do. Like start with documentation, then give me answer. I'm seeing like
I know we have a thing next week.
okay. Be on the lookout for Tiger Day. They might have a thing next week. So yeah, I think those are kind of the big things that I'm using. And then like in my terminal, I use Ghosty and I use Zellage, but I've been using those since like for the last year. So I was able to bring those over from like my active development. And I'm a NeoVim person, so if you use Emacs, we can fight. If you use VS Code, like I guess I haven't played with Cursor. I don't know what any of like that looks like, but I'm sure that like it's all the same AI tooling and AI assisted stuff. So use one, use them all, figure out which ones you like more, create nicknames for them, take them out on dates, like whatever you want to do with them.
Okay, so I actually want to ask my question or like kind of start some future conversation, and meanwhile maybe somebody else will come up with something else.
Okay.
So speaking about JSON tables and manga and what you cannot do. So yeah, he is laughing because he actually knows probably what I'm going to talk about. So I have a not extension, but a framework, which I've been trying to sell to developers and Postgres community. And Magnus tells me that he does not support what I'm doing, though he likes me personally, but I'm doing like all crazy stuff. But what it does, it actually allows you to work with Postgres like with Manga, because I can take your complicated JSON like structure and parse it into normal Postgres tables and query it, like take the Manga style query and parse it in normal Postgres query with joins and return to you a perfect JSON array. So I would love to kind of have some traction on this at some point with some developers.
You should give a talk at this like
I gave this talks like 10 times. I gave this talk 10 times. Everybody are saying it's cool and nobody does anything.
I think that there's an interesting component to that. So one of my big like Python projects is I have a static site generator that I like use for my website and I use for like our nonprofit website, some other things. And at Riga, someone was like, this is a like Postgres conference. So like, how does Postgres work with this? And I said, you're right. What if I could make static sites from like Postgres data? Kind of like how Postgres does like an API thing. What if I can just take a bunch of tables, query them, and then just build an entire website of flat files from it? And I just released a major version today that what it does is it looks at your schema.sql and it converts it into queries for insertion and querying, so that if you don't have to like manually come up with that query yourself, you can just say, here's a dump. Just do a PG dump schema only. And then you just do render engine -pg SQL. And then from there, it gives you all of the commands for all of your blog posts and like micro blog posts and static pages and things like that. And then you can run it and it just prints it all out in like HTML. So again, people were like, why? And then my answer was, why not? And then they started talking because they had reasons. And I was like, no, don't convince me out of this. But I love that. I think that that's one of the things that the Postgres community does appreciate is that like sometimes the answer is you build a thing that helps you work with Postgres easier, or you work with Postgres maybe in a different way than you have before. And it doesn't necessarily have to be in Postgres, but like bonus points when it is.
All right. There you go.
I have two questions.
Okay.
One for both of you.
I
Yeah.
don't know how long we're supposed to be here, but I will talk all day.
As long as people enjoy this conversation.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have space until 8:30.
Okay.
Perfect. Did you see that meme video where the dude made the entire full stack application in just Postgres, PSQL?
I mean, I haven't.
It's a banger.
There are mad lads across the entire internet. Like I wouldn't put it.
Well, it
past
seems
them.
like you're in his footsteps there. You're making a whole.
You know.
And also, question: since there's Postgres, can you serve your static sites from Postgres as well?
I mean, I could.
You could.
Using Postgres would have been easier. I would have put it that way. But also, when you maintain the static site generator, you kind of want to use the static site.
Yeah.
That's-
Oh no, I'm saying like you serve. So you generate the site statically, then you serve the files.
Oh, I have no.
Oh,
That's
You're not
sounds
doing
like a
that?
nerd sniping of a decade, and I refuse to accept it.
I'm gonna nerd snipe you into running into implementing Kubernetes side Postgres. That's the
There
nerd
were
snipe.
some active conversations about doing some Kubernetes things inside of Postgres, and I was like, me and Kubernetes, there's no Kubernetes meetup around me yet, so I feel like I'm safe.
And then I have a question for you. Is it open source what you're working
Yes,
on?
it's on my GitHub.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Wait, what's your GitHub?
My GitHub is HTTP. There is only one Haiti in Postgres.
Perfect.
If you search GitHub for Haiti, you find and even more than you want to know. And the name of this thing is NORM, which is no ORM.
No.
Being a part of the diversity committee in Postgres US, I would love it if there were more headies in Postgres. We should work to fix that problem.
You know, it had been a problem. Like nobody still like, cloned me, which I would love to, because, I have things on my plate enough for free haters. So it's like it is. Yes. No, GitHub HTTP norm.
Gotcha.
Ask me anything. We have documentation, like, 10 pages there. So, yeah. Yep. All right. Any more questions, or otherwise we can move our informal conversation to the cafeteria and see whether there is some pizza left. No? Yep. Okay. One more.
As a developer, what is your thoughts on like ORM tools and are they good? Or
As a developer, what are my thoughts on ORMs? They're changing. I still think that there's a world in which ORMs are, I think that they're perfectly fine. I think that ORMs are great for those who haven't quite fully embraced like going into your database and doing stuff. What I want to challenge are the folks who use the ORM to not think about their database. That's one of the things that gets a lot of app developers in trouble is, I've built this app, to hell with all of the indexes. We're not going to index anything. Or I wrote this query out in a certain way, and like Django ORM does a really good way of like trying to optimize. This was a problem that I had, that we have this AI optimizing thing, and every time I use a query that Django has written and I put it in there, it goes, no, this is the best way to write this. So like I'm glad that there are people who do get some benefits from using ORMs, but if you are avoiding doing your chores when it comes to owning a database because the ORM doesn't have the ability to, or the ORM may obfuscate that, then I would maybe raise caution. Also, I'm gonna be in there hanging out and chatting with people. So like, if there are other questions, we can.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
You were able to